Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Afternoon Edition. My name is Issa Nu. Today we shall be focusing on the economic situations in the country. And just before now, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, that's the LCCI, commends President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the inaugural meeting of the Federal Executive Council and its outcomes. The Chamber notes the President's 8-point agenda on food security, ending poverty, economic growth, and job creation. Others are improving access to capital, particularly consumer credit, inclusivity in all of its dimensions, improving security, improving the playing field, a level playing field on which the people and particularly companies operate. The rule of law is also part of it, and fighting corruption. I remember the Director General of the LCCI, Dr. Chinyere Almona, recognized the challenges and other enormous issues that is expected for the President to address. As described by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, expectations are also enormous, and the Nigerians, corporations, and individuals are not particularly inclined to settle the poor results considering the sacrifices. The LCCI is of the view that if these highlighted policy thrusts of the administration are well articulated and implemented, they are certain to strongly impact the nation's socio-economic landscapes. He further noted that the administration target of creating 50 million jobs should go beyond a policy statement, as implementation is critical to the economy. The most sustainable approach to job creation, according to them, is to support production and create an enabling business environment for the private sector. And he also noted that there is that strong need for push of the thriving private sector that will continue to create jobs for the foreseeable future. The Chamber anticipates that all ministries should clearly articulate the priority areas and further divide them into strategic initiatives with clear timelines and responsibilities for performing monitoring and evaluation. In addition, it anticipates the development of critical metrics with special emphasis on impact, growth, and job creation, poverty reduction, and investment attraction. So today we'll be looking at the comprehensive system when it comes to economic issues, where there is a strong need for the President to act very fast, because we've seen so many policies that he has drafted, and our expectations is that, yes, that will further help in reducing the poverty or the challenges that we have in the country. So today we'll be discussing with nobody but Mr. Farouk Abdullah. Is an economic and financial analyst, and he will be giving us more details on how his policy can be driven in such a way that, yes, Nigerians will benefit from his stay in office. We'll take a very short break, and when we return, we continue the conversation.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial, Channel 127, Free TV, Channel 507, People's TV, Channel 285, and UHF, Channel 38.
The welfare of millions of people for generations to come may be affected by the wisdom which we here display. If Nigerian leaders and our British partners are to prove themselves worthy of their trust, now is the time for us solemnly and truly to dedicate ourselves to seeking the greatest good of the greatest number of our people in Nigeria. Independence for Nigeria in 1960 is imperative. But independence for Nigeria as a corporate entity is not enough. The peoples of Nigeria must at the same time be guaranteed their freedom. We must ensure that in an independent Nigeria, individual citizens throughout the land enjoy liberty, human dignity, and equality under the law. There must be one Nigeria with one constitution and one law for all. Let us therefore, Mr. Chairman, sir, close our ears to the counsel of despair, which says that we cannot here at this conference agree on a constitution. If there's any doubt among us as to what should be written into the constitution, let us, as Democrats that we profess ourselves to be, refer such problems, as the Gaulle has done recently, to the people whom we profess to represent, either just before or at the federal elections late in 1959.
Welcome back from that mild break. And just before the break, I did inform you that I will be having Mr. Farouk Abdullahi, who is an economic analyst and a financial expert. Abdullahi, good afternoon, and welcome to the afternoon edition.
Thank you.
It's nice having you today on this program, and it is very, very important that, yes, we assess our status now on how things are moving. You know, when the president came in, he rolled out several plans on how he can make Nigeria a better country and also a destination for investment. Looking at the global situation now, how do you see us faring in the global sphere?
Thank you, Issa. You see, I would reference the entire global economy with the recent report by IMF. In their 2022 report, it was titled Crisis Upon Crisis. This shows that over the past 3 to 4 years, the global economy has been facing serious challenges, serious crises, ranging from a ravaging pandemic, unprecedented hunger, astronomical rise in inflation, and high level of debt that is being recorded in the global economy. So if you juxtapose this to Nigeria, you'd realize that Nigeria also is not left out of context as regards to the problems and challenges that we are facing or encountering in the economy. If you look at the recent pandemic that the world encountered, it is something that metamorphosed from public health issue to an economic one globally. You know, globally, we have recorded over 769 million cases, out of which we recorded 6.9 million deaths. If you come down to Nigeria,
Nigeria recorded over 250,000 COVID cases, out of which 3,155 deaths was recorded. So owing to all these things, it has metamorphosed into serious issues. It has left policymakers, to make monetary expansions, fiscal and monetary expansions into the economy. Although that is good, but it has its own effect. If you look at the debt profile in the entire globe, just look at the G20 countries. G20 countries alone has injected over $14 trillion into their economy. And these countries comprise to form the biggest economies in the world, So, and when that happens, the implication, obviously, of monetary expansions. You look at also, you look at also in Nigeria, a lot of monetary expansions has taken place, both from the fiscal aspect and also from the monetary aspect. So this has exacerbated the problems around the economy. You also look at our debt profile. Last year it was around 37.3%, but it is projected to end at 38.2% this year. So this is telling us that, yes, there lies an issue of serious astronomical debt. You also look at the inflationary pressures and the inflationary trend in the world. You look at countries like Lebanon. Inflation in Lebanon is around 269%. You come down to Argentina. Inflation in Argentina is 115%. You come down to Turkey. Inflation in Turkey is 38%. So now, let's come down to our neighboring African countries. If you look at Ghana, inflation stood at 38% in Ghana. 34.5% or thereabout in Ghana. You come down to Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, inflation is around 31%. Come down to Egypt. Inflation in Egypt is 36%. Then what is the trend? What is it like in Nigeria? Today, inflation in Nigeria is 28.3%. So if you make these comparisons based on this inflation data that I've read through, you realize that Nigeria is not doing extremely bad, But also, if you juxtapose it with countries that are doing better, you see that there's the need for us to improve in terms of inflationary trend in the country. So this inflationary pressure is owing to there are many reasons that contribute to that. I will come to that. Another reason also, another economic trend that you'd look at is our balance of trade, our import and exports in Nigeria. If you look at recent data, our importation amounts to over $54 billion, while our exportation is about $40-something billion. So if you look at it, you realize that we are having a deficit, a trade balance deficit of over $4 billion, which is, I think, close to $4 billion, which obviously is a bad sign for our economy here in Nigeria. You look at countries like Netherlands, you'd wonder, a country that is as small as Netherlands, with not up to 40,000 square kilometers in size, not up to the size of Niger State. Netherlands contributes, their non-oil exports contribute 28% to their GDP. Bring it down to context. They export their non-oil exports. I think it is to the tune of over $108 billion.
which is quite significant. Come down to Ireland. Ireland transacts over $170 billion in non-oil export. Come down to Nigeria. What is the trend like in non-oil export? In Nigeria, between the decade of 2001 to 2011, our non-oil exports, the contribution of our non-oil export to the GDP is only a meager 0.8%. Bring it up the lane between the decade 2011 to 2022. The contribution of non-oil export to GDP is only a meager 1.8%. So you can see between these 2 decades, the shift, the improvement is nothing to write home about. This speaks of our weakness, our vulnerability in our productive capacity. This speaks of our policy gaps, in our trade activities, in our trading activities, So there is a need to revise all these things and align them with current economic realities. I can go on and on. The economic data, if you analyze them closely, you realize that yes, we understand that the world is going into is facing serious crisis, but definitely what is peculiarly obtainable here in Nigeria is something that can be diversifiable, is something that can be mitigated, it's something that we can record serious improvement. Look at the unemployment also. Okay,
before you discuss the issue of unemployment, the issue of trade, in terms of our trade volume, how we export and then import. Presently we have the World Trade Organization, which is headed by a Nigerian president of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and recently she paid visit to the president. How do you think there should be that strong relationship between Nigeria, the World Trade Organization, having a Nigerian there? How possible is it for us to take advantage of that particular position of hers to see that, yes, we can improve on our export?
Well, you see, one important thing around our trade interaction in the global space is the policies that we put in place to promote trading activities. And if you look at trade itself, from a national context, that is country specific, what is desirous is to promote exportation, of goods and services as against importation of consumable products. So we have seen that Nigeria has banned the importation of certain items that are locally produced. But what has Nigeria done, as a supportive policy to promote the production of those items that we have comparative advantage of producing locally here, So these are the kind of policy that locally here we have to work out, It's good we collaborate with the World Trade Organization, to see how we can optimize our trade relationships, because there's always a standard modus operandi as it regards to how countries interrelate, in terms of their trading activities and all that, because each nations need each other, where you have less comparative advantage of production, then you import. Where you have more comparative advantage, you ensure that you improve, you incentivize, the production of such items locally. This will boost the economy. This will add up to overall export commodities to other neighboring countries or in the entire global economic space. So these are the kind of things that we need in Nigeria to promote. It's of key importance, to leverage on producing commodities that we have comparative advantage of producing locally in Nigeria. It is illogical to start importing rice, although there has been concerted effort by the government to promote rice production locally. Look at the oil and gas that is taking the chunk volume of our resources. We spend a lot of money importing white products, oil products, refined products. It is totally illogical because we have comparative advantage by virtue of the fact that we are an oil producing country. We have the manpower and all that it takes to start producing this, refining these products locally. We ought to be exporting refined products vis-a-vis the oil products, the crude oil that is being produced in the country. So this will strengthen our economy. This will expand our exportation base, and it will give more revenue streams into the country. There will be more inflow of forex into the country, and it will go a long way in solving most of our economic problems. Issue of unemployment, issue of underemployment, issue of inflation, all these things will go a long way in addressing these issues.
You've mentioned two major issues. Now, the issue of manufacturing industry is one of them, which is very, very key for us to boost our economic value. And the other issue is the issue of forex, which also you've also mentioned. When the president came in, he was able to revive that particular aspect of the I&E windows was made open in such a way that everybody should be competitive, and then that would determine the price between the naira and the dollar, how valuable they are. But has that really changed anything in the market?
Well, you see, I always mention that if you want to solve a forex issue, it is not a matter of looking at one policy aspect and believing that it is a silver bullet to solving all of our forex issues. I always like to link the problem around our currency instability, with the root cause of the problem. Why are we having these forex issues? It's simply because we are having shortfalls, lapses in the supply of forex into the country. There is, if you look at the whole issue around, there's what we call net forex inflow. Net forex inflow is the difference between the total inflow of forex into the country and the total outflow of forex out of the country. And over the time, we have been seeing negative figures in our net forex inflows, meaning that the outflow of forex from the country far outstrips the inflow of forex into the country. And when this happens, there lies a problem. If you look at also our GDP, GDP speaks of, our foreign reserve, speaks of our capacity, to shoulder or to weather any pressure in the demands of forex in the country. And this reserve has been battling, over the years. There hasn't been any positive improvement. The trajectory on it is not too favoring, So this also will be another discussion, for there. But again, what I want to arrive at is that if we want to solve the problem of our forex, it's not about policies are good, but you have to address the root cause of the problem. How can you address the root cause of the problem? That is where we need to put more efforts on, is by ensuring that we earn more dollar, we earn more forex, since we understand that the interdependency in forex, in the US dollars, is inevitable at the moment as far as the global economic landscape is concerned, except if we are beginning to see new developments, especially in terms of the alliance from the BRICS and other organizations, other global economic organizations. So this, I believe, is one of the factors that might have changed the narrative. But as long as we maintain this template of transacting within the global economy, it is inevitably necessary that we boost our earning, in forex. And also, okay.
So now, if you pin that to the manufacturing sector, for some time now, both the previous leadership and then the present, including even the one before President Buhari, there was a time where Nigerian leadership had to decide that, look, we have to start manufacturing our goods. The issue of the refund came in, the Rice Farmers Association, we stopped importing rice, and then we started exporting to a greater extent. We started exporting to some neighboring countries and the rest of it. But then the issue still remains that despite the fact that we have volume of rice produced in Nigeria, it didn't actually beat down the price. We are still suffering. The cost of rice keep increasing. And that's just one aspect, the agricultural aspect. So also in other manufacturing industries, we still have the same challenge. So how can the government put this to an end, whereby if we are manufacturing, just like you've rightly stated, that if we have crude oil, then why should we suffer for high cost of price of petrol? So how can the government fix this problem once and for all?
Well, this is a function of addressing the issues around our economic variables and economic fundamentals. You see, it is logical we have to ensure that it is cheaper to buy things that are locally produced than to buy things that are imported into the country. And how can we do that? We have to fix our foreign exchange. We have to fix the issue with the inflationary pressure. I give you an example. I think immediately when the president announced, when the monetary institution
Policy,
announced the unification of the exchange rate, I think a day or 2 days after, I was with my friend, and the guy who is polishing his shoes came by and he asked him to polish his shoe. Then, to my utter surprise, when he finished polishing 2 pairs of shoes, he asked him, what is the bill like? He said each shoe is he can pay 500 naira for both shoes. But as a matter of fact, he's discounting him 100 naira. Something that originally used to be 50 naira, I think. Then I look at him, I say, please, do you have conscience? You are charging this much? He said, aren't we aware of what is going on? Now,
is adjusting to the reality.
Yeah, dollar has skyrocketed. He too is increasing his own his own cost of service. Equally, he also mentioned the high cost of petrol, as reasons why he's hiking his price. So at times the mentality, certain things are not being rooted to the real economic facts, but rather due to perceptions and at times sentiments. So all these things, sums up to people inflating prices of goods and services in the country. So we have to change also our mindset in light of that before we can have a meaningful pricing system. And I'm glad the president also made mention of commodity board, the re-establishment of the commodity board, which will checkmate the prices of commodity to capture the real prices, in real terms. So this is something we are looking forward to the swift implementation of that.
In that particular case, unfortunately, we'll be going for a very short clip because I would have asked that before now we have the price control I think institution that manages issues like that, but then we've not actually seen that general effect on what they do, and to a greater extent it is restricted because we only see them mainly in Abuja and some of the supermarkets and the rest, but outside of it, it's very difficult to track them. So we take a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue with our discussion on the economic analysis that we are facing presently with Farouk Abdullahi.
Our first efforts at democracy and self-government were abruptly arrested in the mid-60s, largely as a result of the incongenial atmosphere engendered by the uncompromising stance adopted by the political parties of the First Republic. Thus, opportunities were lost for our people to interact and learn to accommodate different points of view for the betterment of the country. We must not allow that episode to repeat itself. The new system that will have adopted presents us with yet another opportunity to achieve national integration, which is a prerequisite for the building of a strong and virile nation.
Welcome back from the break, and still with us in the studio is Farouk Abdullahi discussing issues that pertains to the Nigerian economic situations and how it can be addressed. And he has also applauded the leadership of the country for taking certain policy actions, which will definitely yield positive outcome at the end of the day. So Farouk, before the break, you did mention the issue of the board that was just newly or re-established by the president. And how do you see that taking very good shape nationally? Because the price control, I know PCCR, I've forgotten the full meaning of that, but then if you look at that particular agency, most often their activities seem to be a bit restricted to us because you only see them mainly in the Federal Capital Territory. I understand that they have other places where they have offices across the nation, but for us to control price in Nigeria, is that feasible at this particular point in time?
Well, it is feasible because we need a hybrid of free market participation.
But that's what we are doing now.
No, I said we need a hybrid
of
a free market participation and equally some sort of government intervention. You know, that is the language that will work well for Nigeria, because in Nigeria we are good at speculating. We are good at taking advantage of economic situations, you know, to personal gains, you know. So we need a sort of that. And you see, one thing is to bring out or to develop a strategy or a roadmap to addressing fundamental issues. And another thing is to see through to the implementation of it. You know, so the implementation matters, the enforcement of it matters, you know. So these are the things that I think the government has to work on, you know, and also the National Orientation Agency should do a lot in sensitizing people on that. This will go a long way in managing the situation, you know.
I remember before the election, there was issue of the scarcity of the new Naira note, which we debated at that particular point in time on how it is going to also help in making sure that we have a very stable economy as of when the former CBN or he's still the president, because I don't think he has resigned. So when he made that particular monetary policy, so many Nigerians were optimistic that so many things are going to change. But then, due to the difficulty, how tough it was for Nigerians to be able to get the new currency note, there was an adjustment in that particular policy, which will stand till, I think, end of December of this particular year. Do you think that same effect is still there in terms of the impact it had as of that particular point in time? Do you think it is still there and it is also affecting our economic issues now?
No, I don't think so. That effect has been mitigated squarely. The challenges we're facing now is rooted to majorly the economic issues that I mentioned, of which, if you juxtapose it to the global economic arena, you realize that we are facing similar problems. But some problems, you know, are peculiar to the Nigerian economic system. So it's something that it is locally driven. We can change that narrative. So the issue of what happened, the problem with the cash crunch during the erstwhile CBN governor has been resolved, you know. So there's no any cash crunch at the moment. So
now that you still stick the basis on the issue of the manufacturing sector, that will definitely go a long way to address most of this particular issue. One of the major problems the manufacturing sector are also having is the issue of power supply. And in addressing power supply, the previous leadership also was able to get some new equipment into the country and the rest. But then still the manufacturers are still complaining that they don't have adequate power supply. How do you see the new leadership addressing that in order for him to be able to achieve most of his policy that he has laid out?
The policy direction as it relates to addressing the power issue, I think is crystal clear. This administration has spelled out their intention, you know, to restore power supply across the country. which will go a long way in instilling investor confidence, and also promoting local manufacturing and other productive activities. The problem, I think, with our power is rooted down to two things, I think. The source of generating this power and also the transmission of it. I think 70% of power supply is sourced through the gas supplies, while the remaining 30 to 20 is hydropower. So Nigeria can also look at integrating other energy sources, other renewable energy sources like wind energy, turbine energy. We have seen the solar energy also, and also allowing free participation. I think there's also a development in regards to that.
Unbundling the whole sector.
Yes, so that people can participate in providing power and other energy sources.
But that was what the president did when he assumed office.
Yes.
The issue of giving power to the state to also, I think, generate
electricity. Yeah, that will go a long way also. It is important to see that we start recording development as regards to that. We are looking up to the current Minister of Power to see the concerted effort he's going to put in place in addressing the power issue, because I believe it is an integral problem of manufacturing and production in our country. In fact, other services also require power, and it costs us a lot, but we must be willing to pay, the price for having a stable electricity. Go to any part of the world, you would see how costly it is, to pay for electricity bills and even water supplies. Is usually not something that is often discounted, but we hope to see a discounted one, a steady discounted one in Nigeria. I know the Minister of Power might work out some magic.
Okay, we hope and we pray so. But
Yes.
then the key in all this, apart from the issue of having imbalance in terms of the system, societal imbalance, where you have the rich becoming richer and then the poor becoming poorer, there's one key aspect which I would like you to also address, the issue of corruption. Because in all this, if corruption still stays, there will definitely be a problem of keeping the economy strong as it is expected to be.
This is a very important point you are making. You see, there's a recent report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. In the report, findings revealed that corruption cost each Nigerian $1,000.
Each Nigerian
$1,000. And in the report, it is projected that by 2030, corruption would cost each Nigerian $2,000, which represents 50% of our entire GDP. So it will gulp up 50% of our GDP impliedly. So corruption is very cancerous to our Nigerian economic system. Corruption is cancerous to exchange rate. Corruption is bringing about inflationary pressures. Corruption is cancerous to the manufacturing and productive activities, So if every aspect, corruption also is cancerous to our employment levels, and all that. So if you look at every aspect of our socio-economic lifestyle, you realize that the element of corruption is gulping up the significant benefits we ought to have been enjoying. So we must address this issue of corruption. It is a serious one, to be honest.
How do you see the government readdressing this particular? I call it readdressing because it is the same pattern that seen from 2001 down to this particular point in time that Nigerian government has always adopted. The issue of the ICPC, the issue of the EFCC. These are the two major anti-corruption agencies that we've actually used. Do you think there's that strong need to look at it or to remodel the whole structure in such a way that, yes, this can be dealt with, most especially the issue of financial crime in the country?
Well, you see, the issue of corruption is a very complex one. And it starts from you and I. up to the ladder, up to the apex, to the top citizens in the country. So everyone is guilty of corruption. Until we have a shared mindset, until we have a shared vision, until we have a shared perspective on curtailing corruption, sadly speaking, it will remain embedded in us. But I believe I'm optimistic. I'm still optimistic. We can still get out of the woods. You know, the way Nigerians behave or portray ourselves in other countries is different from the way we portray or behave or carry out our activities in our own country. Why is that? Why can't we do that to our country? You know, by simply circumventing basic traffic lights, you know, and other basic rules. You know, this is where corruption starts. So we have to have a shared mindset. National Orientation Agency has to do more. The media agencies also have to do more in enlightening us on the dangers of corruption. The government have to be very practical in ensuring that the issue of corruption is a serious matter, you know, because whatever efforts that we are putting in place to bring about the needed changes that is desirous, corruption gulps it up. It takes it from us. So we have to solve it, we have to resolve it. And I believe and I'm hopeful and optimistic that the current administration would work in solving the issue of corruption in the country. It is my hope and prayers.
What advantage do you think the government have with respect to the current security situation in the country? What advantage do you think it has compared to what we used to have, the high rate of Boko Haram in the past, high rate of banditry, the issue of the Niger Delta vengeance, Ipobians, and then so many agitations? What advantage do you think it has now for it to take advantage of, to see that, yes, we gain that stability on time? That would be my last question for you.
Well, I won't look at it as advantage, because the issue of security is an ongoing thing. You know, it's just like sleeping with two eyes closed. You know, the issue of insecurity, sorry. Yeah. So if insecurity is there, no matter how little it is, we can't sleep with our eyes. The government can't sleep with one eye closed, you know. All eyes has to be opened, you know. But obviously, the advantage, is there, because there isn't much distraction and pressure. But that doesn't mean there isn't insecurity in the country still, because kidnappings are still ongoing, you know. Banditry, although the figures and the numbers have substantially reduced, but it means that we have to be more proactive in doing that. Look at countries, advanced countries. Look at their budget in security. You know, they spend a lot of resources in trying to improve their military capability, their security base and all that. So the government have to work in light of that, you know, so that security, I think, also is about perspective. You know, when you think that this place is secured, you know, you behave freely, you act very disciplined, you know, and those, the culprits of bringing about the insecurities in the society will be scared, will be skeptical of embarking in any insecurity-related activities. For example, if you visit the police headquarters, what do you feel if you are within that environment? You feel some sense of security. Not necessarily that there are weapons or there are things protecting you, but because the perception is there. So we have to create that perception that we are secured.
Thank you so much, Farouk Abdullahi, for giving us this analysis this afternoon. This is how far we can go today on the afternoon edition, discussing issues that pertains to security and also economy is key for national development. And Farouk Abdullahi has thrown so much light on the issue, and we hope and pray that things go as he has stated. Have a wonderful day and stay blessed.